Everybody, we're live on Facebook, and thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks for the candidates for participating. This is night 4 of our Coffee with the Candidates events. We've got a great lineup. We're going to try to go ahead and get started so that we can not be here till midnight tonight, because we've got a bunch of folks on the slate today. First off, thanks to Mr. McHugh David, Livingston Parish News, for coming up with all these wonderful questions he's going to be asking. And without further ado, Mr. Barry Ivey, if you want to take the stage.
Cheating. I call it prepared.
We all have our perspectives. So good evening, sir.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you for coming. So we always open this up. We give you 2 to 3 minutes. Tell us who you are, a little bit about you personally, and why you're running for this office.
All right, man, who I am in just a couple minutes, that's a deep question. But no, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all and for y'all hosting this forum. I am Barry Ivey. I'm running for State Senate District 6, which is the east side of East Baton Rouge Parish, about 60% or so of St. Helena, and the east side of Livingston Parish. I've been married to the love of my life, Julie, for 25 years. We have 4 kids, ages 24, 22, 19, and 16, 2 boys and 2 girls. Our oldest daughter and her husband just gave us our first grandchild about 9 or 10 weeks ago, where I'm getting to experience what the life of a pawpaw is and just thrilled about it. And I've served in House District 65, which is the city of Central and part of Southeast Baton Rouge for the last 11 years. I am passionate about everything that I do in my life. I'm passionate about serving others, and I am. Which is why I want to continue, trying to serve people in the state senate.
Okay, thank you, sir. So let's first talk about, excuse me, you have been a House member, as you said, for 11 years. What experience in that realm that you have made you feel like you needed to run for this seat?
I believe I can say this with all sincerity, that there is no other legislator like myself. I am an outlier, and I believe it's a sad thing when I tell you some of the nature of the outlier nature. So I hate politics with a passion. How many of you love Louisiana? We love Louisiana, but Louisiana has been failing our children and grandchildren for generations. I've done a tremendous amount of research. I make decisions, informed decisions based on people, principles, and policy. How does what we're discussing affect people? People is a number one thing in every decision that I make. The second thing is, determining what, if any, underlying principles may come into play in that decision. And lastly, it's about the policy. It's about the words on the paper and how they actually affect people. Too often, what we find is that politics casts a very broad and dark shadow over the entire process, where there are too many times where everyone in the room knows what the right thing to do is, yet because of the tremendous amount of political pressure, and it's mostly optics and just nonsense, it goes the wrong way. If you would have polled the entire state of Louisiana, know whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, white, black, Latino, it doesn't matter. Everyone would give you the common sense answer. Well, of course, this is what we should do. But again, because of politics, it can go the other way. I can say with all honesty that I have never allowed politics or pressure to interfere with what the prudent decision for the people was. You get more infamous than famous when you do that, but and beyond just pressing the button, because here's the job. I had 4th graders come to the Capitol and did the little thing, and my favorite question I've ever been asked was, well, what do you got to do to be a legislator? I said, it's real simple. I said, raise your pointy finger, and I had them sitting at our desk. I said, you see the green button? Do you see the red button? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, if you can press the green or the red button, you can be a legislator. That's a sad reality. You don't have to read a bill. You don't have to author a bill. You don't have to figure out, understand the problems, or try to solve them. You can press a green or red button having never actually read a bill. And when the board lights up, 70 to 80 something % of the bills almost all green, because it's administrative or local or, just not a real difficult issue. And then you have that, the next weighted category is, another 15% or so where it's kind of the wedge political issues, and it mostly goes DNR. And then there's the smallest subset is those really complicated issues, and where it crosses over political boundaries, and those are the more difficult ones. And unfortunately, because of term limits and things like that, there's just no institutional knowledge in the legislature, and so I'm an outlier. I put over 2,000 hours a year outside of session, well over 30,000 hours in the last 11 years, trying to research, understand the problems, working on solutions. Because again, any good parent will do anything to help provide for their kids a future, where give them an opportunity. Parents make sacrifices. It's what we do. In the state of Louisiana, politicians won't even sacrifice potential political self preservation. And so I always make it, I've completely disregarded in my 11 years the concept of getting reelected by caving into political pressure. And so if I can't get reelected by doing the right thing for the right reasons, it's okay. I'll do something different. But anyway, I'm a little different if you can't tell already.
So, no comments from the peanut gallery, please. So, as you move forward to run for this Senate seat, it's a little different than representing mostly East Baton Rouge Parish. You have, as you mentioned, parts of EBR, parts of St. Helena, parts of Livingston. How does that, you talk about representing the people, how does that adjust your mindset as you run for this seat?
It doesn't adjust it at all. The constituency may be geographically different, but I live in Central, and other than football, with some of the areas, the dominant, I'd say the dominant culture within the community that I serve is very similar to the parts of Livingston Parish and St. Helena. I grew up in my very early years after, right after I was born. My parents lived off of Pine Street, down the street from here. I lived in Walker in my early childhood. And then we moved to South Baton Rouge, which is part of the district. And then we moved to Central. And so I've got a strong grip on what representation should look like for this community. I served 3 years for 3 summers, the entire summers at Singing Waters Ranch as a camp counselor. And so again, I love Livingston Parish. My wife actually was raised in the town of Livingston, for her elementary, middle school, and before she moved to Central. And so again, we've got roots over here. My grandparents lived behind, down the street from here for their entire lives. So again, very familiar. It's the same culture. The same values are very much shared.
So this district has been changed a little bit through redistricting. You'd be representing the eastern portion
Correct.
Of Livingston. As you've walked through those streets and talked to people, what's some of the more prevailing issues that continue to come up?
So I haven't put the boots on the ground as much as I probably should, but having been at the Capitol, and again, people come and express themselves there. The fact that Louisiana has been failing our children for generations, that our children are leaving, is something that I believe resonates across the entire state. Rural Louisiana, there's a special place in my heart for rural Louisiana and the challenges that rural Louisiana faces. Of course, I have the great benefit and privilege of living in Central, which is not part of Baton Rouge, but within the parish. And so that infrastructure and all those historical investments certainly benefit us. Much of rural Louisiana doesn't have that. It's the old school, look, you own bootstraps, ain't nobody coming to help. And that's my own personal, philosophy. I don't expect others to come and do any of the heavy lifting. I do all of my own bill writing and stuff like that with staff. I have both hands in the pie as it's being made. And so our kids are leaving. People have lost hope that there's a future here for them in our state. And if we don't turn that around, then could just continue to be a state in decline, and our best and our brightest and our kids and our talent and everyone who can leave will leave. And so what's at the root of that problem? I'm happy to answer that in a different question or whatever.
I am literally here to ask questions for you to answer. So if you want to keep going on that, go for it.
I'll keep riffing on it. So I've spent, again, a lot of time trying to understand fundamentally what the issues are in our state. If you ask everyone, everybody says the great state of Louisiana. And I'm about to break some rules of politics here. Everybody says, what's so great about it? What is it? The people, right? To me, it's like, well, what's great about a people who, for generations, allowed their state to continue to decline, their kids to leave, and refuse to do whatever is necessary to solve the problems that have plagued us for generations? What's great about that people? I don't know. Because to me, like, it's about our kids. It's about our grandkids. It's about their hope, their future. And I just, the saying in our governors, I've heard other people say, look, our best days are ahead of us. Like, what kind of statement is that? Or in other groups say, we're going to, a comeback from where? Where have we been? Where are we going to come back to? We need to redefine the state of Louisiana. We need to transform it and create it, but we need a vision for our state, one that supersedes politics and those types of things. And the quality of life metrics that are out there, are some universal things that everyone wants to be a part of. And unfortunately, we don't focus on those things. We get bogged down in the fringe issues where not that we shouldn't address things and be proactive, because we should. But when we spend all of our time and energy and focus on messaging these issues, the problems aren't going anywhere. And again, this is a veteran legislator's perspective, and mine's a little different. But look, deep pocket special interests have controlled this state for generations. Nothing's changed. And in the talks about constitutional conventions, and I was in a thing last night. I was the only candidate that said, no, we shouldn't do a constitutional convention. Should we revise our constitution? Yes. Should it be in the form of a convention? No, because when you study the history of Louisiana's dozen constitutions, more than any other state, and thousands of constitutional amendments that have been, presented, and we've adopted over 200, I think 280 something have been adopted to the 1974 Constitution. And the reality is this: special interest gets what special interest wants. You are an afterthought. Obviously we have, some of those core things, Bill of Rights and things like that in our state constitution, and those remain. But, to really solve our problem, all we're really doing is trying to, create a constitution, in my opinion, that will most benefit, deep pocket special interests. And look, I'm as pro healthy economy as anybody. I'm pro business, but look, we got to make a distinction. Corporate special interest isn't the same as small business. Small business gets nothing. All the reforms and things we do, all the things we talk about, small business doesn't get anything. We do the bidding of the money. That's where the influence is. And because of turnover, it's very difficult for people. In my experience, you have to have a firm grasp of the subject matter if you're going to stand up to these people, because they've got lobbyists and spend tons of money. I have developed the skills and the knowledge base, and the reason why they hate me is because I'm one of the few legislators capable of actually calling them out and pointing out the flaw and how this isn't what's best for the people's interest. Not only am I one of the few that have invested the time and energy to on the issues to be able to call it out, I'm one of the few who actually will, and they hate it. My voting record is as very similar to my opponents. I respect my opponent, nothing but good things to say about him. However, there's a difference. Character matters when it matters. Your character only is revealed when pressure is applied. And unfortunately, politics provides a tremendous amount of cover. Because look, it's easy to say, oh, well, I voted that because, well, this is that. Okay. But there's more depth there. There's more nuance. And so I've made very different decisions on voting rights because I believe in people's right to vote. I was one of 8 Republicans, and I made a big deal about it. There was people have the constitutional right to register and vote, period. The only people who have that right suspended are people who are convicted of a felony. That right is suspended. Well, one of my colleagues, a Democrat, brought a bill to address a very novel, issue where people who were incarcerated or, they were in prison, either misdemeanor conviction or waiting, due process to be completed. Well, our laws also require that anyone who registered vote by mail and didn't register in person at the registrar of voters, that they vote in person the first time. Well, there's a subset of people who can't vote. She brought a bill to try to correct that problem, and it failed. I brought an amendment to try to address, make it, take out some of the complexity that they were added, and I couldn't get my colleagues to bring the bill back up. I brought a resolution because the Secretary of State has the statutory authority to, there's a certain administrative rule where adding one thing to it would take care of the problem. I was only one of 8 Republicans who voted for it. And so, unfortunately, when you are a principled conservative, I found that political conservatism can too often dominate the decision-making process. And it's a very different thing. Either you believe in people's right, you shouldn't care if it's a D or an R or an I or no party. It shouldn't matter. And so I will go to the floor. I will do everything that I can to fight for the people. It's what I do. I don't care about any of the nonsense. I don't care about the politics, because the longer we delay in coming together, identifying problems and working on solutions, the longer that our children, will continue to leave our state and, lose hope that there's any future here for them.
So, in going back to some of the things you said earlier, I am going to come back to what you said about the Constitutional Convention, but I did want to ask you about problems in Livingston Parish in no particular order, and they may not necessarily be problems, just main focuses are schools, drainage, infrastructure.
Yep.
Speaking on your prior experience, prior record in the House, and of course you're moving over to the Senate, we'll also talk about that in a minute, but with that prior experience, I hate to use the word, but what are you selling to the people of Livingston Parish, or the people of this district, as you will address those issues?
What am I selling as I address the issues? So, character and integrity are everything to me. It's what I'm bringing in, and when I leave, whether I'm reelected or not, it's what I'm taking with me. My integrity is not for sale, period, ever. I don't care if I had the magic bullet that was going to solve every problem in the state, and all I had to do was sacrifice my integrity and nobody would know. It doesn't matter. I can't do it. And so I've never horse traded a vote in my 11 years. Meaning, look, if it's a bill and it's a good bill and it helps people, guess what? You got my vote. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you voted against every one of my bills. If it's something good for people, it's there. If it's something that I disagree with, but it's a real problem, guess what? I will work with you on a solution to those problems. And in the end, after doing everything I can, if I can't, I can't. And this is how I play. I play very straight up. My cards are on the table all the time. It makes me. I'm a terrible politician because I choose to be a statesman. I don't play the political games. Everyone, if they don't like me, they usually at least respect me because they know that what they see is exactly what they're going to get. And so no one can fight harder than me. I mean, I go more rounds than anybody on every issue. I mean, I can, if you can't work 36 to 40 hours in a row and do that 2 or 3 times a week, then you're not going to outwork me. And so I do what it takes to put in the work and fight the fight for the people. And as far as the issues, look, drainage, look, Central, Livingston, drainage issues, right? That's always, and of course, Representative Hodges here, and she's been fighting for the diversion canal for her entire tenure. And so I've always appreciated that. Someone asked me one time, it's like, well, why aren't you at, I'm like, listen, I don't believe in wasting time duplicating efforts. She's putting in the work. I said, I'm going to support what, you know, her efforts, you know, on that. And so all that said, that we have a lot of shared, you know, infrastructure issues. Look, y'all drive through Central's infrastructure, you know, down Magnolia Bridge. So I live off of wax. So I mean, I have to, so again, we have a very much a common, common issues. You know, one of the big issues this session, and I know is an important issue on the southern part of the Livingston district, and that is Lake Maurepas and the CO2 carbon capture sequestration. I was one of the few Republicans knowing it, I'm going to get dinged with Lot B and they're going to come after me and all that. But look, it's just real simple, right? What did I feel based on all the information, everything was the right decision? That's what I made. In full knowledge of the political consequences, but I just disregard those in my decision-making process. So that was a big issue that has come up is, but that's my position. I'm not against carbon capture, but I believe that people who live in these communities where these projects are going to go should have a whole lot of say in how it happens. And I think there were some missed opportunities early on in the process that kind of got people off on the wrong foot. So
we actually, based on something you said just a minute ago, we have a question from the audience. Miss Cindy Wesley asks, what problems do you feel are making our families leave specifically? And she goes on to say the economy is bad all over the country, so that doesn't seem to be the main issue.
Correct. So quality of life. Everybody wants to live. And of course, everybody, the gubernatorial candidates, everybody's like crime. Look, these are symptoms of a problem. Right? Crime is it the problem or is it a symptom of a problem? You still have to deal with it, but what's at the root of it? And of course, education, look, the breakdown of the family in our country has been the root cause of many of our nation's woes. And in our own communities, if you don't address generational poverty, see, it's like you plant a seed and then, the fruit that you get is what was planted. And so how can children who've grown up in generational poverty stay in that community, right? Still no education in these things. How can they produce anything else? And so I believe in innovation, and we have to innovate our solutions. We can't just throw, more money after the same failed solutions. And so we've got to do better at that. And education is the key. And I believe that our problems in our state, if we're going to truly transform our state, we need to migrate away from this, almost an unbelievable amount of focus on business and economy and focus on people. So I'll give you a great example. This is data is a couple years old, so a couple budget cycles ago. But in that year, we gave $150 million to 123.5 companies for, quote, quality jobs tax credit. In that same year, we invested about $150-something million in the 80,000 kids in our technical community college system. We don't invest in people in Louisiana. We invest in companies, corporations. We invest in them. They get everything they want. And then they want to whine and complain about the Constitution and we need a new one because guess what? If you look at all the amendments, it's their doing. They're the ones who got a lot of these amendments passed, but we need to go back and revise it. And so we need to turn our hearts and our attention back to the people. We need to see people in need who make bad decisions, right? Like people who are incarcerated. They're still people. And if someone who grew up in generational poverty, right, started doing drugs or dealing whatever it calls them, get in jail, who has no education, who has no employable skill set, if they just serve the time for the crime and they get out, well, what do we expect to be any different? Which is why our state has had for a long time the highest rates of recidivism. We have to invest in people. Look, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, we don't even have a pond in many cases. And so look, all we can do is provide opportunity. And I believe in my constituents, and look, raise your hand if you like paying taxes. Said no one ever, right? No one likes it. And nobody wants their hard-earned tax dollars wasted. But people, I believe, especially in this community and the one I serve, guess what? They're willing to see somebody who needs help. And if they're willing to put in the work, You know what? Most of the people that I talk to, they're willing to help that person. Okay. But they've got to make the decision. They've got to walk that path. And so we need to provide more opportunity. That opportunity needs investment. And we need to invest more in people. If we don't do that, then we're living on a corporate plantation in the state.
So you discussed the Constitutional Convention earlier. You're not for it. How would you adjust the setup as it currently stands to fix it, to focus more on, as you said, people?
Absolutely. So I believe the legislature has the responsibility, and it's inherent in our job. Legislators, we legislate. It's all about the policy. And so the Constitution provides for two means of revision, three means of revision. Number one, you can do a constitutional amendment. It has to be a single object, or it has to be a series of laws contained within that subject. So you can't do an education component and then something like with traffic. You can't, they don't go on the same piece of legislation on the same ballot. So that's one. Number two, you can do a constitutional convention, right? We file a bill, it passes, and a convention is called. The third one is the Constitution allows for the revision of an entire article. And so we can take each article, we can do the due diligence, we can host that process in the forum, having it in control of the legislature, and we can, solve the problems. And then we can redraft an article, what the new version looks like, and put it out there for the people, and the people can decide on, hey, Article 7, which is the article that primarily deals with tax policy that everybody wants to get into, is the most amended portion of the Constitution. We can rewrite Article 7. But I had a study resolution to ask every committee to study the portion of the Constitution that were within that committee's domain, because, well, what's the problem? Everybody says we need one, but what's the problem? Like, why don't we identify what the problems are and start talking about the solutions before we just say, hey, we need a convention. And so here's what I believe. This is just my intuition. Again, my reading of the tea leaves. Deep pocket special interests will purchase the convention. They'll purchase it. They'll spend whatever money it takes to get their delegates elected to in enough quantity where anything and everything they want, it's done. It's done. And then they'll spend as much money as it takes to sell it to the people. Our 74 Constitution was sold based on some lies, some false advertising out there, and it was one of the key components. I don't know, the book's around here, but anyway, we got to get back to what it's about, and we need to get back to character and integrity in the process, caring about people and each other, and I don't believe that's really practically achievable in a convention.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. As you move from a house, the house, which has a lot more people than the other side.
105 legislators, yeah.
You're going from basically cutting it down by about 60%. But you have worked with senators before. What sort of successes do you believe you've had in the House, and how are you going to bring that success to the other side?
Well, they call the Senate the upper chamber. And, there's some inside jokes where, when you walk across the hall from the House to the Senate, your ego gets inflated. And ironically, this is a real observation. So the House chamber doors on the side, not the big middle ones, are about this wide. Two people can't fit in it. It's pretty tight. When you go to the Senate chamber, those doors are wider, and it occurred to me is to fit the egos as they come in and out. But my commitment is to stay humble before God in my public service. I've done it for 11 years, and moving from one side of the building to the other has zero impact on that. In all honesty, I think having to at least initially only deal with 38 other people it may make the job too easy, but good thing is there's plenty of problems try to solve. But dealing with 39 people is a very different proposition than just passing a bill in the House that only at a majority vote is 53 votes. So it's a very different dynamic. Also, because in my experience, because the Senate has much broader geography, districts, the balance, the political components of it aren't as hyper partisan as they are in the House, because the districts are broader. I believe I am have the perfect disposition for that, because I look across the full spectrum of the issues and stuff, and don't get into politics. So I believe I'm better suited. I've talked to many of the colleagues in the Senate, and they would definitely like to work with me, because I will get my hands dirty. I'll roll up the sleeves, get my hands dirty on anybody's bill. I put more effort in some of my colleagues' bills than they put in their own bill. When I engage, it's like, listen, you get 100%. And so anyway, I'll answer the question.
Okay. You've got 2 minutes left. You can either say what you'd like to say, or I'll ask you one more question.
All right, I'll try to do a close. You know, they say talk is cheap, but it's never cheaper than when it's political speech. I hate politics with a passion. Politics has never solved a single problem, as far as I'm aware of. Policy is what affects change in our state. It's the only thing that can do it. I have been 100% committed to maintain a focus on people, principles, and policy for 11 years. And so when you're a new candidate, if you've got no track record, there's a lot of things that you can say. And even as a candidate with a track record, there's a lot of things that you can say. But I am proud to be able to say that I've never compromised my convictions in 11 years. It's a long road to success, but I believe it's the only road to success. We have to be more authentic about why we want to do what we do, who we're serving. And it takes a lot of introspection to understand what's motivating a decision. Is it political pressure? And I've always been very self-effacing. When I was first elected 11 years ago, I made 3 promises to myself. Number 1, be honest with myself. Number 2, give it 100%. And number 3, be consistent. I've got 11 years. That's what I've done. And again, appreciate y'all's time and the opportunity to come and speak.
That was impressive. That was exactly 2 minutes. If you will go ahead and reintroduce yourself and let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Again, Barry Ivey, running for Senate District 6. My phone number, you can reach me on my cell at 225-262-9350. My email address is senate@barryivey.com. That's BARRYIVEY.com.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time. Next, I believe